Okay, so the first lesson that we have today, and good afternoon, everyone again. The first lesson we have today, starting from the second Sunday, is the greatest in the kingdom. And you all have the lesson already, I know, in your notes. I didn't send you the email of this class yet because we're gonna uh, add a little bit to it as we go anyway. So it may as well give you one. It's for verses two. Let's start by going ahead and starting to read the text of the lesson. That's 18, Matthew 1 through 9. And
Read it.
if somebody can, if you're going to read it, they got to come closer. Okay.
At the same time came the disciples unto
Can you
Jesus.
all hear her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we hear.
Okay.
At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Verse 5. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. And so I'm trying not to laugh. Woe unto the world because of the offenses, the offense. For it must needs be that offenses come, but woe to them, to that man by whom the offense cometh. Wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off, and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having two hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire. And if thy eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter to life with one eye rather than having two eyes to be cast into hellfire.
Right. So it's only 9 verses. Um, I'm just writing a little bit as in the application stuff as we're talking because I didn't get to type all that stuff in. But that way, all this will be on the notes anyway. Okay, so what we got so far is clarification on what he's saying here as we go through it. And it's a very interesting area. So the some of the uh, I'll say arguing points or titillating points that come up here are very interesting and are frequently misunderstood by the body of Christ. And because language, as well as I'll say syntax, the way the sentences are structured, sometimes throws you off. So let's just take a quick look as we pray through here. The disciples came to Jesus asking, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom?" All right, he brought over a little child, as we see here, and he brought over the child and declared, "Except you come as a child, you shall and be converted, ye shall not enter the kingdom." All right, so the first little element we have here, I think we lost Alicia. Let me look again here real quick. Yeah, I think we lost her. She kind of disappeared in there. She may be trying to get back in. Uh, let me
It
double
says
check.
it's just her video and her sound is on.
Repeat that again.
It's just that her video's off and her sound is on mute.
Oh,
But
okay.
she's
I see
still
she's
one of the
still in there.
participants.
Okay. That's very interesting. I hadn't seen it do that before. I would still see the names most of the time, so I'm a little confused why I'm seeing it that way now. But I probably did something Wednesday that's causing that. Okay, but anyway, moving on. He says, "Except that you should come as a child and be converted, you shall not enter the kingdom." Okay, so the kingdom of God has some specificity to it and requirements that we are ready to come the way God calls for us to come. That's very important because a lot of people have the mindset of the psychology of the coexist culture of, well, everyone can come, just be a good person, and that is absolutely not biblical. Okay. He brought over a child, and he brought the child in order to express and to basically illustrate what the motto is. You've got to come as one who is not arguing or fighting or standing for your own intention, but one who is humbled, one who is subordinate. That's another element of being a child, right? Uh, Whosoever comes such as a child is the greatest. All right. He answers this question. They said, "Who's the greatest?" He says, "Them that come as a child is the greatest." Now, they were probably trying to figure out which God is the greatest. If you go look at the application, I'm just going to jump over there now because the conversation kind of mixes between that. In alignment with the cultural norms of the day, with consideration, I should say, not with considering. Just considering is probably better, good enough. Considering the Babylonian, Persian, and Greek occupations of Jerusalem, Jesus' disciple inquired of the hierarchy. Should be ED, inquired of the hierarchy in the kingdom. So they are asking, who is the big cheese? Who's the one who's really in charge? All right. Just like in other pagan systems, which they have been exposed to all around. I just mentioned the recent ones that are noted, but they had always had higher gods, lower gods, higher gods, demigods and things like that. So, which is like human mixed gods and stuff. So they had a lot of experience with that, and so their mind said, well, who's going to be the greatest, or who is the greatest? Jesus rightly points to fact, or I'm sorry, I'm going to say he observes that they're probably having to think about how they're going to be great. They're trying to figure out how you get to be great or who's great. So he brings, since they brought it up, and he says, whoever comes as a child is the greatest. And then he goes on to say, and if somebody receives one of these children, one of these, uh, uh, whosoever receives one of these receives me. So if you're receiving these ones who come as a child, those who come humble, those who come ready, those who come with the meekness, all the elements that he talks about, much of it is demonstrated in the Beatitudes. If they come that way, then those who receive them, that would be easily modeled. Maybe I'd probably say and put in the parentheses here along with that, Matthew chapter 10. So I'm going to do it real quick. Matthew 10. If I can get my hands to type what I want to type. All right, Matthew 10th chapter. And you'll see when he sends the 12 out there, it'll make sense because it's modeling the idea that you have to come as a child. And then when they are out, when they go out, they're sent into cities, the 12%, then 70%, and they're sent out, and they are told to tell them that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And if those who receive them, those who come in that experience them in their cities, and they receive them, those people are receiving Jesus. By receiving those who have already come to Jesus, then you are receiving Jesus. Does that make sense? How I'm it's sort of a math question, algebraic type expression. Does that make sense,
Yes,
everyone?
but it's as you come as a child, yes, because as you had expressed about being Christ-like, and it's like Jesus Christ is training up. You said train up a child in the way that they should go, and as we being humble to Jesus Christ and being able to go to compel those that are lost, how to humble ourselves to be as Jesus Christ, loving and caring for one another.
Well, all that other stuff is nice, but that's not directly to the point. I want to make sure we get into the point directly. He's making sure he's saying something. Whereas loving and being like Christ is what you're doing as you come to it. So I'm not knocking that down. But we want to make sure we understand the context of the scripture. So with this context, what he's saying is, when someone comes to me as a child, So the person A comes to me as a child. They come submitted. They come humble. They come ready to learn. They come in a position where they can grow. I'll put it that way. They're in a growth mode. That's a good model of what a child is in. Okay. Then that child, when that child goes out from me, those who receive that child, that's why I said this a little tricky here. Those who receive that child receive me. Let's go back and let me take you to a specific verse so it'll be a little more clear. Verse number 5. And whosoever shall receive one such little child. Y'all see that in your Bible? Or in your Sunday school lesson? Verse 5.
Yes.
Y'all see? Okay. One that receives such little child in my name receiveth me, or receiveth me. So we want to make sure we understand it. He's really talking about the disciples or them that come after him, those who come to him, and it's basically saying when they've come to me, and then they are in a position where someone else actually receives them in my name. So that would be the disciples now going out. That's why I put Matthew 10 right there. So just make sure we're all on the same page. That child now is somewhere to be either rejected or received. When that child goes out and whoever is there and they receive that child, they will be receiving me. That'll be Yeshua himself, Jesus. So that's a very important element. That's pointing to the fact that when we do the work of the kingdom, those who receive us are receiving Christ. Got it, Elder? Make sense?
The way I'm looking at it is like you train up a child in the way they should go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like children learn from example by watching and listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then like my brother, he said he went to Walmart and this young man was saying that people should be getting ready because Christ is coming back soon, quick and in a hurry. So the other co-workers, they was on their cell phone and not want to help the customers and stuff. And I was like, a lot of young people, you know, either they have their parents and grandparents has trained them to know, study thyself, to self-approved, to understand Jesus wanted us all to be disciples. And as you train the child up then, you know, from the beginning, so they can go out and spread the good news.
Okay, while them training up a child or someone training up their children is a biblical model, that's not what he's talking about here. So we want to make sure you're in context of what he's talking about here. So when whoever teaches anyway, and you all will have opportunity to teach somewhere, even if it's not this particular week, whatever your particular time is, you know, rotation, whatever. But that we all have the understanding of the scripture. What he's talking about here is him raising up children, not us. Okay.
Right. Jesus Christ training us to be Christ-like.
Yeah, gotcha. You got it. Okay. So then that next phase is, so this is basically this is a metaphor that Jesus is using, saying, I'm giving you a model. All right. Don't take each word to mean exactly how it means, like, for instance, father, mother. That is a model, father, mother. Now he's talking about himself. They come to me as a child. As a child is expressing again, a model, as one who is humble, one who is subordinate, because children are subordinate to adults, one who is in a mode of growth and expansion. All those are aspects of a child. And so what he's saying, you got to come to me, humble. You got to come to me knowing you're subordinate, not challenging me, not trying to be your own God, but saying, you're God, and I humbly come to you. Number 3 that I mentioned is, at least there's more aspects, but here's another one, is that you have to be in a mode of growth, a position of being able to grow, like a child is in a position to grow, right? So you have to get that is a model he's talking about here. You know, although, you know, what you said from Proverbs is a true text, It's not kind of what he's talking to right now. He's talking to, when you come to me, childlike mindset needs to be the mindset you have. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah, just like Peter, James, and John came humbly, and you just like they're like me, but God wants you to come as a child mind so He can train them and teach them the
Yep.
way to be.
Yep. That's exactly it. That's what. Yep. That's what it is. And then the next part of it then is, now, whosoever, verse 5, whosoever receives one of these, and he just gives them out. He uses the language as one such little one, one such little child. I'm sorry. All right. In my name receives me, or receiveth me. So that next part is basically saying, because someone receives one of my disciples, one of them who came to me, one of these childs or children, I guess. All right. If you receive them, then you're receiving me.
Yes.
Make sense? That's what. So that part is then pointing to the fact that that means when you or I, who are people who have come to Jesus, go and are in company of other people, or are part of their mission going out to go to other people, however it happens to work out, and people receive them, they will receive Jesus Christ. Everybody get it now? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I know that's kind of, it's a tricky set of text in there, and that's why I was, kind of specifically. So the only reason I just typed in this little link to, or link, we'll use it, a reference is the Bible term, biblical term, versus yeah, what do you call it? IT and internet terms like links. But anyway, the reference here is to Matthew 10, because that receiving these children points to the commission that Jesus gives the 12 disciples when he sends them out in Matthew chapter 10. And when they go out, they're given instructions as to what to do when they go into a city. If this happens, do A. If that happens, do B. I'm not going to go into that right now, but he's given that stuff. They're given that stuff. And so this statement here that we're seeing in chapter 18 is to some degree pointing backwards to Matthew 10, when those disciples are sent. Those disciples are the representatives of Jesus, and those who receive those disciples of Jesus are receiving Jesus. And there's your connection in verse number 5. Okay? Make sense, everybody? I see your heads a little bit. Okay. All right. So, woe unto the world, the next part of it I wanted to get to, he says, but whosoever shall offend, verse 6, whosoever shall offend the little ones, it would be better for them for the millstone to be hanged about their neck and for them to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Okay. So that's real familiar about offending little ones. Now, here's a misunderstanding again. That's why this is such an important time to take the moment to study the text. People think this is referring to children. This is not referring to children. This is referring to the ones who came to God, such as or like a child. Okay? This is who it's referring to. So, but whosoever shall offend one of these little ones, he's not talking about children. See, there's where it has been confused for years. He's talking about the little ones. He's not talking about the little ones. He's talking about those who came as a little one, those who came humbly, those who came subordinately, those who came ready to grow. Now you see the difference, right? Does that make sense now? How we're talking about verse 6?
The servants of Christ.
Yes, exactly. They came. Now, if someone else comes along to offend them that believe in me, it's better for all the rest of that stuff that he talks about, the millstone and being drowned in the depth of the sea. Okay? That makes sense. Look at the word offend in the vocabulary here. I threw those in there earlier, so let's go back and look at this word offend. The word offend, everybody can see where my cursor is. I hope it looks like easy to see kind of where that comes from. This word is scandalon. You're gonna have to come over here to these. You can't see from scandalon. Scandalon, because that's an omicron. So scandalon. As you can see, it is a K versus a C, which we use a C in English, but it's the root word of guess what? Anybody got a guess? No?
Thin.
No.
I said thin.
Bend?
Hmm.
No, no. Okay, just take the O-N off the end. What you got?
Scandal.
Exactly. There you go. That's what we're talking about. Scandal. There was a TV show on for like 4 or 5 years, wasn't it? Called Scandal with
Yes.
what's the girl name? It made her rich. Uh, Whatever. I can't remember her name. Some Washington. Kerry Washington. Is that right?
Kerry Washington, yes.
Washington. Yes.
All right, I got it. All right. So in that, you see the root, the word, or the etymological root, I should say, coming from Greek. You can see the word scandal comes from Greek, and they just we use a C. English is we're always following some other rule anyway, but it's the root of scandal. Now, what is the scandal? Let's define it. Number one, a trap. All right. Number two, sin. No, and part of number two, stumbling block or obstacle or cause to sin or causes one to sin. And there's more definitions to it. I didn't put everything that I had on there, but I wanted to make sure you had the fundamental stuff inside of there. So really what they're saying is not that something bad happened, which we would think, oh, you got involved with something bad. All right. But actually, the scandal, the concept of its original concept, I'll say biblically, is the idea of causing someone to be trapped in sin or to set them up so they will go into sin. That's what actually the biblical concept of scandal is oriented toward, causing someone to actually go into sin. All right. And so when he uses this phrase, and let's go back to verse 6, whosoever shall offend one of these little ones, what is he saying? Whosoever will cause one of these new converts, one of these disciples to go into sin, to fall into a trap, to end up being stumbled or to fall from their new life and walk, those people who he's talking about. He's not saying you said something to them that made them mad, which we would think like, oh, you offended me. Just looking at the English, you offended me, you made me mad. Or the actual in my Bible, which it is a study Bible, has these dictionary, has these terms in there for definitions from time to time. And for the word offend, it has the word hurt. Anybody else have a study Bible that you're looking at and they have the word hurt in there as you look at your Bible? To define the word offend, you see the little T by offend, in front of the word to offend. If you have that kind of Bible, it'll show that kind of thing. The T is a sign of definition, and the definition will be right behind the verse there. Anybody else have that? It's just me. No?
No.
Okay.
I have it. Mine says harmful effects.
Oh, yours is harmful
events.
Harmful event.
Or
Okay.
offenses.
Okay. Okay. Well, it gives you a framework. By going back to the Greek scandalon, I think you get a better handle on this. It's actually causing someone to sin, not just harm, but because harm could be you slap them in the face. Harm could be you cause them to be arrested. Those are a lot of things that harm could mean. But actually, what Jesus and the framework that he's coming from is you cause them to go into sin. You cause them to fall from the walk of Christ, the walk of salvation. That's what he's focused on. All right. So it is quite different. It's about salvation. It's not about um, the flesh or discomfort in some way in the world. It's about causing them to go into sin. So that would probably fit the definition of we used to have a law that was implemented frequently in the countries and here in Illinois as well, was called contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Have y'all heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah. So the contributing to the delinquency of a
Yes.
minor would be anything where you ended up either showing them, exposing them, giving them things that are not to their benefit or to their good, but causing them to fall into trouble. Giving them cigarettes, giving them a gun, giving them pornography to watch, giving them, I don't know, alcohol to drink.
Alcohol,
That was a
drugs.
big thing. There you go. All that stuff was real common. And what people would think, oh, well, they're old enough, I'm gonna let them have it. And if they ended up causing a problem, that's when the law would jump in and say, what you did caused those kids or that child to go into trouble. You contributed to the delinquency of a minor, and that is a crime, and you're gonna pay for that because it is a crime. So that's a difference. We hardly follow up with that now, except when it comes to guns. They get excited about a gun, but they don't get excited about everything that led to the perverted mind of an individual who wants to go kill his teacher or his fellow students. All the things like the movies you let them watch, the videos you let them play, the adult conversations you let them participate in, the alcohol you let them drink, the weed you let them smoke, all those things that are part of what really contributes to the delinquency of the minor are not considered. They just consider the last step, the last act, when they actually carry out some kind of act. Then, if you were involved with that, they call that some kind of way you're responsible as an adult. I don't think they use the law contributing to the delinquency of a minor anymore, but they ought to. You let them stay home from school just because they want to watch TV, stuff like that. Taking them on vacation, and they end up failing, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. All those should be charged, in my opinion, because that's what the law was aimed at. But anyway, this is what Jesus is actually, that concept is what Jesus is talking about. If you cause my little ones to fall away by teaching them wrong, by leading them wrong, by tempting them into sin of this and that and the other, it would be better for you for a millstone to be tied about your neck and for you to be cast into the depths of the sea. That's what he's talking about. So that aims at leadership, Christian leadership, church leadership, parents, political leadership, school leadership now. It really points to all of those things to a great extent. Let's see, what else does he say that's important here? Woe to the world. All right, let's read that. Woe unto the world because of offenses. Nevertheless, they must come. And we've read that and heard that. I've heard of myself. I'm not gonna say this week. Some I have done, and I've heard you thought of in lots of ways. There's gonna be offenses. There's gonna be people who work to to bring scandalon. I'm sorry, to you. There's gonna be people who bring scandalon to those children of God, to try to lead them away. People are going to try to lead you away from God, cause you to fall away from God. Oh, just come and drink with us a little bit. That's not going to hurt. Come, just do the party. It's just one party, and we're just going to be here for a couple hours. People who try to lead those who are trying to follow Christ away from Christ. Those who he's talking about, they're going to do it. But guess what? It's going to be better for them if they had been drowned in the bottom of the sea, putting a millstone around their neck. Millstone's a pretty big rock, heavy rock that they use to grind corn, wheat, or something with. So you're not going to get up from there. And they're saying it's better for that than for you to have caused a scandalon or offense. So tie those words in your vocabulary together. Scandalon, or being in this type of scandal, is the word for offenses here in this text. Okay, in this text. Don't think it means it every time you see it in the text, because you'll have to double check, because remember, it's being translated into English. You may see offenses again, and it may mean to hurt or to harm or to cause pain. So you have to do the etymology if you're trying to use language like this. That's part of the challenge there. Other word that we didn't talk about is he said something important earlier. He says that except ye be converted and become as little children. Verse 3. I meant to say that earlier. Let's jump back real quick. And said, when they asked the question about this situation, who's going to be the greatest? Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, right? And become as little children. All right. The word here for converted from the Greek again, so its etymology / root comes from the Greek. It is strephomahi, and that's not what we really use either for any of our English. But there's the word is strephomahi, and it means turn around. We get that. Come to believe, and for the Southern interpretation, change one's ways. Okay, so we had three definitions that were those were the top three in the Logos interlinear translation. A little different than interlinear, but it's a mix of interlinear and translation Bible. And change one's ways. So it's really important that all those who are in the thought when we say converted, it doesn't mean, oh, I now believe. The devils believe. Some people say, well, I believe now. The devils believe too. We know that's in the scripture. Jesus says that the devils believe also. That doesn't mean anything. The devil knows God is God. That's not proof of anything. Believing has to turn into that word pistio and pistis. It has to become I live this way. This is what I rely on. This is how I actually walk my life. This is the what do you call it? The roadmap of my life. Faith in God, not just I believe God exists. You know. So there's where the idea of conversion or being converted, strephomai, stands out strong. All right. Let's see, what did we get to with this? Anything else that was really sticking out? Okay, so then that explains the next part. Well, the offenses will come. We know that. Verse 8 and 9. Therefore, if thy hand or foot offend thee, cut them off, lest and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life without something, halt, some kind of being crippled, halt or palsied or something, or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire. Again, everlasting fire, a reference to the punishment of the final judgment, hell fire, not just a holding place, but hell fire, to all those fake preachers who are now saying there's no hell. Jesus says there's going to be a hellfire. They can decide if they believe in Jesus or they got their own Jesus. But what Jesus says, hellfire is in the offing. So very important text with regard to that and validating the concept of hellfire, where a lot of folks are at this modern age, including Carlton Pearson, who was very public about it. So very publicly, I'll say it, that there's going to be hellfire, not just, oh, you're going to be held, and when you leave, holding the tomb in the ground, the Sheol, and then that's the end of it. That's not the case. No, there is fire. All right. So, and the eye is the same thing. So, verse 9 points to the same thing. Just the idea that, what, the hellfire is there. It's better not to fall away from the grace of God. It's better not to leave your walk in God than to have all of your body intact. It's better to go without something and end up in heaven, in life, than to go intact into hellfire. So it's pretty clear. Any questions about that? I think we.
Question, Pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get to understanding, about the hellfire.
Yes.
I know Jesus Christ, as I read something about that, he is the fire. And then you think about the difference with the Holy Ghost fire. And as we coming back, it's like the fire of Jesus. Is that a different kind of fire?
Yeah, because there's a fire, which is a type of fire that's in your belly, in your soul. The purging fire, which is just designed to heal. and it's healed is that is to get rid of that which is unclean. The model would probably be what happened with Isaiah in chapter 6, where the angel put the coal of fire on his tongue, where the Lord says he would purge with fire the sin and so forth away from Joshua in Zechariah chapter 3, Zechariah chapter 3, where the priest, Joshua the priest, they're all corrupt. And Joshua, I'm looking real fast as I'm talking to you, and I'm gonna make sure I'm telling you the right framework and the right chapter. Yeah, chapter 3. Yeah, Joshua, Zechariah chapter 3. Joshua the priest is unclean, his clothes is filthy, and the angels have to purge him. So the fire of purging is as an effect the trial the trial of the cleansing of one. All right. Verse is hellfire, which is the fire of destruction. So they will be burned, and what he says, with unquenchable fire. That is a different concept than the fire of purging and making whole and holy. The cleansing fire, like in reference to the gold, and you'll come out as gold. The idea of purging away the dross. Those are lots of multiple scriptures, things like that, where the dross will be purged away, and then what'll be left is just the purity. That's the Jesus type of fire for the children of God. And tested, all your works will be tested by fire. What is that? 1 Corinthians 3 and 4, chapter 3, I think it is. All those are cleansing fires, versus the hellfire is destructive fire. And I'm just looking at Corinthians, so I'll tell you the right spot for sure.
So it's cleansing, purging.
Right. Okay, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Yeah. All right. So every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If a man's work abide, which he has built upon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved. All right, so and it goes on. Ye are the temple of God, verse 16, and the Spirit of God dwells in you. That's verse 16, verse 17. And then he talks a little more. If any man defile the temple of God, remember, you're the temple of God. Remember the idea of the children being given scandal, the idea of scandal causing them to be defiled, causing them to come away from righteousness and to go into sin. All right. If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. There is the term complete destruction. Now, that's different than having works purged. That's destruction of the man. When the works were purged, the man was saved. If you remember in verse 15, this is 1 Corinthians 3:15. Now, I'm talking about verse 17. If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. Verse 17. So that just these distinctions are kind of played with right in there in that 1 Corinthians chapter 3.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Good question too. All right. So in alignment, I'm looking at the application one more time. And the alignment of the cultural norms of the day, considering Babylon, Persia, the Babylonian, Persian, should have commas, and Greek occupations of Jerusalem. Jesus' disciple inquire of the hierarchy in the kingdom. This explains their interest to know who to call on as the head/chief. So they want to know who the top dog is in heaven, and how you become the top dog will be implied, or who you should reference when you're trying to get to the top dog in heaven. Jesus explains, the one who comes as a child is the greatest. Anyone who seeks to cause offense or scandal, which is we just went through, it would be better, I should say. It would be better. It would be better that they be, and I fix that R, but be better that they be tied to a millstone and cast into the sea. We discussed all of that. So we have the idea that any other questions about that particular lesson, because that's where it was tough, and it's going to be somewhat of a new understanding to some folks in class. So you're going to need to be clear about who these children are. It is not about what do you call it? It is not. This is actually not about juveniles. It is talking about new believers. That's the focus. And after they come to believing, someone trying to cause them to be scandalized, to cause them to fall into sin. We good on that? Okay.
Amen.
19. Jesus talks, I'm sorry, with a Samaritan. There's the text there. Somebody read the text for us. So we got like 3 sections of text. I think I got it all right. I hope I didn't add the what you call it, devotional reading. I think I got them all right this time.
Okay. So there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw waters. Jesus said unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou would have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. And the woman said unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? And Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into eternal, everlasting life. And the woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither from hither to draw. So that's the first half.
Okay.
You want me to keep going or?
Well, we can stop there. Let's just stop. Okay. I'm looking at something else for just a second, but let's go. Let's look at what we have in our first area of this background. The Samaritan woman is at the well, and Jesus asked her, "Give me to drink." She asked, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask drink of me?" You can hear that pretty clear, pretty clearly. It's pretty familiar. She's of Samaria. He responded, "Well, let's stop for a second. She's of Samaria. Somebody tell me, why is it significant that she's of Samaria?"
They didn't believe in Jesus Christ.
Nobody believed in Jesus Christ yet at that point, because he was just being developed as a known quantity. So not just she didn't believe in Jesus Christ, go a little further than that.
They were their enemies.
They had become enemies to them. Can you tell me why? Or somewhat why? You don't have to give me every detail or anything like that. Don't remember anything particular?
Well, they're family, right? They're like a mixed hodgepodge of each other, kind of there, and I think they're north of them, correct?
They are.
Israel or something like that.
They're north of them. They were in various times, including with the Syrian fights when they were fighting with the Syrians, but also in other circumstances when it came to other invasions. They took up league and under certain northern kings literally worked together with enemies to fight against Jerusalem, Judah particularly. They literally came against Judah, taking up arms against Judah with other countries, other nations, I should say. And that was the 10 tribes that went north. The 10 tribes after Rehoboam, right? After Rehoboam messed up the fellowship of the whole kingdom by trying to tax the people more and more and more and more. At some point, you keep taxing people, you're gonna get a Boston Tea Party, right? That's what happened there. Instead of them going along with him, what's his name? Jeroboam led 10 of the tribes into a complete civil war with Judah. And who else stayed with them was Benjamin. And Levi was kind of mixed hodgepodge around the area. So you had 10 of the tribes out of the 12 completely under a different leadership, not the Davidic family line, right? And those 10 tribes ended up being what do you call it? Uh, disloyal and even enemies to the original to the I'm sorry, to the Judah and Benjamin tribe, which was in Jerusalem. They became enemies to Jerusalem in general. Okay, and that's where you get the northern concept, the northern tribes, southern tribes, the wars between them. When David gets in power, he has to deal with the fights that is coming from them to a degree before the split. But then after David comes into power, all the tribes come together under David in Second Samuel, and it's all unified again, and things are well. But then when David's grandson Jeroboam does his little trick with the taxing and kind of oppressing the people, that split is a permanent split. That's what happens with that. All right, that's the big long-term split that happens in Israel. All right, so they have consistently been adversarial. And what happened during the period, I will repeat this one more time again, at least, during the period of the Greek occupation. So we're talking from 330 down, BC 330 BC down or so, is they clearly in the north took on all of the culture of whatever the gods were of the Greeks, and definitely worked together to build. And right now, all the names are not coming to my mind off the top of my head. I can almost start telling you in a minute. Ooh, if I keep on thinking, but they set up another temple in Samaria area. They set up a whole nother temple, Gerizim, in Gerizim. They set up another temple, and they led everybody to go up there, at least to go worship there. And Mount Gerizim is an area called, as well as a mountain, obviously. And she is familiar with Gerizim, Mount working and doing whatever they're doing, worshiping whatever God and what aspect of God they're worshiping in Gerizim. And so that is completely out of order. God clearly said, Jerusalem is where my temple is supposed to be. And so the Jews absolutely have nothing to do with them, and in their opinion, clearly heretical types of worship, and even the location where they're worshiping, which was done as a counterpoint to Jerusalem because they wanted to have a way to influence the people away from God. And that all started actually even right after, like I said, with Jeroboam, because that's Jeroboam actually kicked that off, by the way. But it continued and became a greater and greater divide between them. So they have been enemies a long, long time. We're talking a long time. We got David in the 900s, okay? The 900 BC realm, David. So they've been having a conflict for a long time, long, long time. So by the time we get down to the time of Jesus, all right, 900 years later, at least, this has been a historical problem back and forth with them. Does that make sense? Why it's such a big issue? Okay. So when Jesus asked her, obviously this was like, what in the world? How in the world are we having this conversation? Because we don't have conversations. So we've nothing but enemies. Okay. All right. Let's see. So the unified nation, not since really David, they've had any kind of real unified nation. Okay. And we know what happened afterwards. So let's see. He responded, if you knew the gift of God that was in you, you would have asked me of water. Did you get that far? I'm not saying I jumped too far.
Yes, I got up to 15.
Oh yeah, you went on 15. Okay, okay. All right. All right. He said, if you knew who I was, then you would have asked me for water, and I would have given you living water. And I'm looking at the background piece right here. I would have given you living water. And then after the exchange they have, she asked for the water. You discussed the exchange when she says, "What do you mean you have nothing to get drink with? You don't have a cup. You don't have a whatever they use, a bucket or something to go down in the well and get water. Go down in the well and get water." Let me note this. This is a well. This is Jacob's well, You know, she makes note of Jacob, that he's the one who gave us this well. Uh, I think they showed me Abraham's well while I was over there. I don't think it was Jacob's well. I'm not sure that was the right one they found. They supposedly found Abraham's well. But anyway, uh, note that these wells were well known, like if you want to call them oasis, because over there is a lot of desert. So knowing where the wells are is the difference in knowing where to have some, how to live or die. So that was really key. So she's at one of the wells, and as customary, you all know in Semitic and Hamitic, meaning Ham, and Shemitic cultures, for sure, women are always the ones who bear and bring the water or the refreshing. And in Africa, that culture, uh, you know, this culture is still alive, that women would typically be the ones who would bear water. If it's in that kind of a rural community, women bringing the water. Women are bringing the men don't go bring the water. Women go and bring the water. We can see that all the way back to Rebecca, women bringing the water. That's where Eliezer finds Rebecca at the well. All right. And so he asked her for the water as is culturally normal. So anybody who tries to apply 2023 culture and sensibilities to that is ignorant. You can't do that. You have to apply the culture at the time when you're trying to understand people. And so Jesus asked her for the water, and she does the whole I'm surprised deal, we discussed already. And then he said, if you'd known who I was, you would have asked me for water, and I would have given you living water. Why is living water important? Here's the word. Look at the vocabulary terms. Can somebody read that for us there? The vocabulary, the living water. I'll pronounce it Zao.
Live, be alive, live again, resurrection life.
Yes. Because we had a lesson about maybe 3-4 weeks ago where they used this word life, and I noted to you all that it was not Zoe, which is the normal Greek term for life, but it was Zao, which means not just life, but live again, be revived, to have life again. That was very significant. So he's not saying, oh, you'll just have water that is alive, because that would be easy to understand, because he's talking about running water normally. And people say living water, unlike a well is stagnant water. Uh-oh. A well is water that's sitting at the bottom underneath some layers of the earth surface. That water is down there. It's not necessarily running. All right. You should not drink from a well directly per se. It may or may not be really clean water, because there can be some parasites and other things in the water, because it is just down in a pool under the surface of the earth. Living water normally refers to a river, spring, shooting water. It's got to be moving and shooting. That's water that's normally safe. It's active, and any kind of things that are in that water are being pushed away. If dirt and any kind of things that are with it, I'll say particulate matter, is all being purged away because it's living water. So when this term living water is applied, that's the first level of understanding inside of there. But level 2 is under that second definition, relive, or we would be able to connect it to a New Testament concept of born again. Not just born, but born again. Not just live again. Resurrection, then. You see the difference? Thou is toward resurrection, not just being alive, living. And that's why that's a distinction that this is now twice I've raised it with you all from the Greek translation. So when you hear it and you hear the word living water, you know to let me see if this is Zoe, Z-O-A, Z-O-E, I'm sorry, Z-O-E, Zoe, like the girl Zoe Zaldano, I think is her name. Zoe mean life, just life. Or is it Zao, which means new life or resurrected life, live again life? There's a big difference. Because he's telling her, you've already had a life. Watch the theme of this whole this interchange or exchange between her and Jesus. He says, you've already had a life. I'm telling you, I will give you the opportunity for a new life to live again. That's what he's doing. Even the language he's using from the Greek, which he was speaking most likely to her, because think she's in the northern tribes, so she's in the Samaritan area where they don't even have their tribes no more up there. They so broke up and tore up and mixed up with everything. They done mixed blood with everybody up there as well as gods with everybody up there. They don't even really have their tribes broken off anymore. Like, oh, I'm from Benjamin and I'm from, well, not Benjamin, take Benjamin away. I'm from, come on, Zebulon. And somebody else says, oh, I'm from,
Gad.
yeah, get there, help me out, Gad, something like that. They're so mixed up after all the occupations and all the intermingling that they've had from different occupying nations. They don't really know. They're just Samaritans. Okay. They just the hodgepodge in the north. All right. And so it's like, you don't know really where you come from and what you're talking about. She says we worship. If you go through the rest of this that they don't have in the lesson, we worship. We know where we worship, and he talks about it. Yeah, you worship up there in Gerizim. I think he actually mentions Gerizim, if I remember correctly. We worship. He said, "You know worship, you know not what." Verse 22. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews, meaning Judah, not Gad, not Reuben, not Zebulon, not Ephraim. Salvation is from the Judah, from the Jews. All right, Yehuda is the right word. All right. All right. But the hour cometh, and now is, verse 23. But true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and you're familiar with that. They must worship in spirit and in truth. Okay, the references here, I have to remember this is directly in the text here. The reference is here, and when they talk about you worship on the mountain, verse 20, the woman says, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain. Where's this mountain? In Samaria. All right. And so that reference to knowing what that is had to come from a little more study. I'm just telling you, but background knowledge. But nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship, and he breaks down. You don't know what you're worshiping, and but he clarifies salvation is of the Jews, making clear in Judah, in their area, is where the salvation comes from, not this mountain that you are familiar with going and worshiping at. So really, really real. So many things inside of here that could be taken apart. It's not, you can't do it all in a Sunday school lesson. I'm just saying, but there's a lot of things in there to be taken apart, if you're trying to get a handle on it. Okay, we stopped at 15. I know. Any questions about that before I just jump out and go on? No? Okay. Let me know if it comes up. So you got Zal, you got the idea of what they're worshiping. Okay. Understanding why the water is significant. It is living and live again water, not just living water from the concept that is spring water or river water, running water, but you're talking about water that will allow you to live again, not just that it's live water, not dead water like a pool. Okay, that's important. Separation. And then what else was the last bit? The Samaritan woman. Okay. Let me see. While we're talking about that, stay on topic. Over in the application. Can somebody read the application there, the Samaritan woman? So that's
The
reinforcement.
Samaritan woman is stunned that a Jewish person is asking her, a woman of diminutive social status, to even touch his water. Yeah. Their history throughout various invasions and occupations had exposed the disloyalty of the northern tribes and caused a significant rift with Judah. Okay, so that was more historical background, help you put you in that context. You can go dig into that on your own to go further. All right, Marnie, can you go ahead, or whoever, read on to the next portions, 28 and whatever.
Okay. 28. The woman then left her water pot and went her way into the city and said to the men, Come see a man which told me all the things ever I did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city and came unto him. Okay, and then verse 39. And many of the Samaritans of that city believed on him for the saying of the woman, which testified, He told me all that ever I did. So when the Samaritans were come unto him, they besought him and that he would tarry with them. And he abode 2 days. And many more believed because of his own word.
Okay, so this validates this ministry of Jesus to go to Samaria. He said to the disciples, I must go to Samaria. When they said, let me use the phrase exactly, verse 4. He said, and he must needs go through Samaria. That's the phrase. Now we may have to pull the Greek apart, pull apart and get it translated. It'll make a little bit more sense, but remember syntax that was what I said. Syntax it's going to always kind of maybe throw us off when we're reading. Since we're English readers, we have to try to get back to consider how they framed and phrased their thoughts back then. The way they organize thoughts, logikos, right? Logic, logos, and logic, the idea of their order of words and thoughts. All right. So, but here is this is what Jesus said. He went there because he knew it was salvation to be given to them. That's why. He went there because he knew that this exchange would result in salvation in Samaria. That's why it was important for him to go to Samaria. And so he did that, and he met that woman, and everything flowed that way. She went and told other people, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Let me read this text. Read what I said. Furthermore, she went out telling others, come see a man which told me all that I ever did. I just used the phrase the way she did. I probably should put it in quotes. She basically she's validating that his ministry to her was valid. Remember, we talk about frequently with regard to the Samaritan woman is that he tells her that go get thy husband. And verse 17, the woman answers, he says, go call thy husband. Verse 16, so Jesus says, go call thy husband after she asked for the water. And the woman says, I have no husband. Jesus does that whole little other exchange with, it's not in this lesson, but just so you have in your background, that whole exchange of saying, he said, thou hast said, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou hast is not thy husband. In that says thou truly. So when you said that, you were telling the truth. You have no husband, because who you're with now is not your husband. All right. The woman says, sir, I perceive thou art a prophet. He said, Father, she said, our fathers worshipped on the mountain. We just discussed that issue. And you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. That's clarifying. She knows she's in the wrong place. She's on the mountain. And then Jesus breaks it down in what we discussed earlier. Salvation should be in the place of worship ought to be, as God said it back in Genesis, in Jerusalem, in Judah, not up on the mountains of Gerizim. Part of what Jeroboam started up, part of what those during the occupation of the Greek Empire reinforced, trying to have another location to basically displace Judah as the centerpiece of worship. I'm almost about to tell you his name. Anyway, it ended up being a whole little mess where the governor wanted him to marry his daughter, and he made the deal and said, if you marry my daughter, I'll make you the high priest, but you can be the high priest at this other temple instead of the temple where they all were. And that's how that got reinforced. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see the screen again. Who am I missing? Elder Porter. Let's make sure you're back as well. Let me see. I see your screen.
I'm back.
You are there? Okay. That's before I started talking over. Okay. So here we are with another familiar text, this is a key element of the teaching of the gospel, discipleship, and leadership is you have to repeat the traditions that God gave. That is to say, people would have to have a habit of doing traditions that they give themselves, their family traditions, cultural traditions. What God requires for us to do is rehearse in the ears of our children what He has said, what He has taught. So we rehearse familiar stories, even though we say, well, we've learned this before. You may know it, but those who are coming, those little ones, those new ones, and your own even offspring, they don't know it. So it's very important that even though something's familiar to you, you step outside of yourself and step in a position of ministry and that um, share that lesson with um, your either family members or those other new disciples that God allows you to be around and to lead or guide to understanding. So keep that all in mind. Because for me, when I started reading it, for me especially, I guess maybe preacher is a little bit of a hazard for preachers. I've read this story so many times, like, oh, well, okay. But if you're not careful, you'll miss something that God might want to say to you today about it, and be careful for that. So let's go to this one. Jesus overpowers Legion. I find that interesting, the phrase Legion, not the Legion, but because he gets referenced by the name Legion, we can go with that usage of, I guess, the way they phrased it. Jesus overpowers Legion. Someone can start reading in Mark 5.
And they came over into the other side of the sea, into the country of Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cut himself with stones. Wow, self-mutilated. Okay. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshiped him.
Let me interrupt right there. Okay, let's stop there. Let's see what we have so far. Make sure we're just following the same thing. Having disembarked from the ship, Jesus is confronted with the man in the tombs of Gadara. The name of the place is Gadara. I have spelled it both ways. I think the last time I saw it, I saw E, and that's when I make sure. All right, so Gadara, and he comes out and he immediately runs to Jesus. Note that. What is that a suggestion of? Watch the metaphors now. We're going to do metaphors here for a minute again. Here we go. Why is someone who is filled with unclean spirits running to Jesus? Good question. Think about that for a minute. All right. And he runs to Jesus. He met him, has an unclean spirit. All right. He lives in the tombs. He lives in the graveyard of Gadara. And no man can bind him or not even with chains. And it gives the breakdown of all the different things they've done. No one can tame him. And this word tame him with an A. This word tame him comes from the word in the Greek, damazo. So you all can also use that. I don't have the ability to type it with Greek alphabets here at the moment. I have to bring it over from the other computer to do that. So I'm just going to let you see the pronunciation right now. Let me spell it right. That's important. All right. Damazo. All right. And this means, yeah, and the primary definition, I can give you the Strong's, you can go look it up. Strong's is 1150. So if you got your concordance, you can look it up, Strong's 1150. And what it is referring to is to bring under control. So that's the Greek word damazo, and that's his definition, bring under control or subdue. All right. So there's the basics for that. That's in there. Uh, I can give you the more Greek letters maybe later, but here it is. That's what we have, and no one can bring him under control. He's out of control. He broke chains and fetters, indicating he was given new supernatural power by his possessor. So whatever is possessing him is giving him supernatural power. All right. Whatever's possessing him is causing him to have supernatural power. Does that remind you all of anything? Just curious.
Satan.
Yeah. Something maybe that you can remember, some kind of example of this happening in the world.
Superman.
Huh?
Superman.
Superman.
And Samson.
Oh, spelled it
No.
wrong. Well, Samson's supernatural power. No, I'll give you immolations with an I. That's what I'm getting wrong. All right. Samson is has supernatural power, and it comes because it comes from who?
God.
God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why do they not like this word? I mean, I'm spelling it right. I spelled it several ways. There's nothing wrong with how I'm spelling it. All right. Okay. Am I spelling immolation wrong, Marnies? I think I'm right. I'm looking at the dictionary as well. So I don't know why they.
EMU.
Huh?
EMULATION. Immolation.
No.
Are you saying mutilation?
No.
I thought you said emulation.
No, it's immolation. No, it's immolation.
Oh,
Oh, that's right. It's immolation.
What is this? What word? Oh, can you use it in a sentence? I don't know what.
Self-immolation. That's destruction.
Like
thought-
self-manipulation. Like self-manipulate.
Yeah.
Self-mutilation?
Technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Self-mutilation.
Yeah, like
We use
mutilation.
mutilation.
Yeah, people
Yeah, we don't
mutilating
do. I
themselves.
don't. Yeah, mutilation. What is immolation?
That's the graduate doctorate level word. Instead of using using mutilation like a regular person, the doctor is going to say immolation. That's what I'm being honest. That's but what is more than just mutilation, because there's other ways of destroying yourself, you know. So it's not always cutting, like in this case, this man is cutting. Other people burn themselves with cigarettes. People do different things. They light fire on themselves. They do a variety of different things in some manner of self-destruction. Okay, so immolation.
So
is the word.
immolation means destruction. Because for all of that, we still encompass that under self-mutilation. So that's why I was asking.
No, that's great. That's good. So when you go somewhere, you can take this word a little further, and when you're talking, instead of using what they say, the high school word of mutilation, you say immolation, and you just can go study this word on your own, so you can get all the details. But anyway, free. I know no charge. You know, free vocabulary enhancers. That's part of my job. All right. So anyway, he's cutting himself. No one can tame him. He's out of control because he has unclean spirits in him. He's cutting, so something else. You're familiar with that cutting, when people cutting themselves. That's, I'm sure, very, very familiar.
In the mental hospital, yes.
Well, that's not always in the mental hospital. There's people out here that you know. You just don't know they cut themselves because they pull clothes over it to hide it. You just don't see it.
No, I just saw when I worked 10 years in mental health. So.
Oh, you did see that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah. They are a good example of people who are filled with unclean spirits, which the psychologists frequently pretend they don't know if they can say it's true or not. They keep saying there's something bothering them or something in their brain. They're having a mood problem. Well, Marnies can break that down. I don't know how that goes, but exactly. But they refuse to accept spiritual principles, except in some circles, But we start with
spiritual warfare.
Yeah, they go. Who I was trying to get you all. Now you said warfare. You kicked in. What I was trying to get you all to remember is Linda Blair.
Oh, yes. I went to the movie. Yes, I read the book. Then I went to the movie. Yes.
Yeah, Exorcist. Yeah, and then she also had supernatural power. Remember?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a couple things right there. That's just the models that this guy is giving biblical validation where people say, well, I don't know if that stuff is true. Well, you don't read the Bible. Clearly, okay, so now it's telling me this is 1L on immolation. Okay, so I'm looking at a definition online saying 2Ls, and this one's saying 1L. So maybe this one is correct. I'm gonna make it 1L and see if it goes away with this
Yeah, I
line.
see 1L. Yeah, I see 1L online too. As a transitive verb. That's what you're using.
Whose definition?
1L. I see 1L too.
Right.
Okay. Okay, it's
And
1L, guys.
yeah.
Okay, glad that's good. That's what we do though. We check ourselves, so that's fine. All right,
Yeah.
so it's 1L. Now you got it down. Look at that word again. Look at it again. No one's gonna know that word except few people. So it's a good one to put in your backpack.
So he was sacrificing himself, or like that's what the Bible is trying to say. Not only was he just hurting himself, he was trying to offer himself as a sacrifice.
That would be the positive side of that. He's damaging himself, period. And what they're doing is they're talking about bringing themselves to the point of being damaged, like you saying, sacrificing themselves.
Like the monks, they set themselves on fire.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
The negative is obviously I'm not doing it for a good cause. I'm doing it because I'm being led into this or possessed to the point of this is what I was doing. The other case would be people who are who was the guy who did that? Where was that at? Tunisia during Obama's presidency in Tunisia, where the guy set himself on fire in front of their courthouse or building.
Quan Duc. Quan Quang. I found it. Quan Duc, DUC, self-mutilation, done to protest alleged persecution of Buddhists by the South Vietnamese government. That one. A monk prays over Quan Duc's remains. After the immolation, monks prevent a fire truck from approaching the scene. Is that the one?
That's not the one I'm talking about. It was in the Arab countries, but that has happened too. It's happened more than one place, so it's not unknown. So that's another. You said South Vietnamese.
Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah, this was recently. This was what they kicked it off the Arab Spring under Obama's administration. So I can't remember what year it was, but it kicked off, and we ended up fighting in Libya and murdering the leadership of what's his name, Muammar Gaddafi, causing the murder of him, and later on the destruction and the murder of the U.S. ambassador, something Stevens. So back in 2012, maybe I can't remember exactly. So you have to go back and look. You look back at that whole period where there was fighting going all over the Middle East. Egypt was in upheaval. All over Middle East, you had problem, war. People fighting each other. It all supposedly kicked off. Iran supposedly all kicked off when this guy self-immolated. All right, so it's a good word to try to understand. In this particular context, let's make sure that we understand this destruction is destruction because evil spirits have possession over this man. Okay, and that's more like along the line of what you see in the mental hospital and people who are damaging themselves because there's something inside them making them want to damage themselves. This is not a cause and all that stuff that they're referring to. I'm trying to think of a biblical example where they might say Jesus, but Jesus didn't immolate. It's somebody else did the killing, and that would be a misnomer to try to connect Jesus to self-immolation. He did not harm himself.
Right.
Even though he was sacrificed, he did not do it to himself. So I don't really see that as a high cultural standard or in any way an acceptable biblical concept in my view. Although one might die for the cause, it's not because you did it to yourself, directly at least. You might say you should have just done what they told you and you wouldn't have had to be killed, but that's still, in my opinion, not immolation. I think that's a kind of a wrong perspective. That's just me. I think the perspective is wrong there. Anyway, go ahead. We got that. That's how he came out. he's full of evil spirits, and he says, "What have I to do?" Well, let's go back and read verse 6. Can you read 6 again?
But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And
Okay,
he
let's stop right there. Good. So we know what he is, what he refers to himself as Legion. But let me just look at this word Legion when he says it, because a lot of times syntax is lost in the translation. He says, what is thy name? He said, my name is Legion, for we are many. Okay. Ego, anoma, legion or legion. So, okay, that's fine. My name is Legion. Okay, so he's saying, yeah, what you said there. My name is Legion. But I wanted you all to take note. He comes to worship. Did you all notice that he's self-immolating, cutting himself, and he ran to worship him?
because he wanted to wipe him out.
No, he ran to worship him. It says worship.
I still think it was just a front, so he didn't get wiped out right away. I don't know.
No, he didn't run. He didn't run to deceive him. This is what is the word for it is the actual Greek worship word, not shaka, but the Greek worship word proskuneo means to kiss toward, in a worship stance. So he ran to worship him. So that is, well, I'm sorry. Why would he come to worship him? Can you all just think about it for a minute? These kind of things I think you guys should think about.
He came to worship him because he was crying out for help. Sometimes a person can be torn down to being doing body wrong or body harm to his own body, when he's crying out for Jesus to help me and to save me from this condition.
That is a very interesting take. I do kind of see that I need help, I need deliverance, and yet these spirits have control over me. And even with the spirits, I'm running toward God, or running toward Jesus in this case. But I'm running toward where deliverance can be found. I found it interesting to really notice that he ran to worship. I know I've read this many times, but it didn't stick out to me that he ran to worship him. Wow, I mean, I just see a lot of potential thought that goes with that. That yes, I need help. Yes, I know I'm wrong. I'm destroying myself because I feel so wrong. I'm so broken inside or corrupt in what I am, that I know I need you, and yet that's what I'm doing.
Because you should think about the song about I'm running back to you.
Okay. The idea of run. That word. Yeah. You're being what do you call it? I'm using the word. You're being stimulated by the past tense of the word run, ran. Right. So that word is making you think about that phrase, running back to you in this situation, or trying to run the guy. I think that's what's going on. Marnus can tell me if I'm wrong for that type of analysis. But anyway, I can see the word stimulating the language, stimulating that, saying run to God. And he did basically appear to be running toward the Lord. Then what does he say out of his mouth, though, after he starts talking?
Whatever I have to do with you. He was like, basically, why are you here bothering me?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that I thought about is, are we looking at someone who is so fractured inside, and that's the kind of terms in the modern thought, fractured, that there's a part of him running to God, and then the other part is controlling his speech control, or his speech functionality, saying something in counterpoint to what his other part of him, which led him to run to the Lord, was trying to say. What do y'all think?
I
What's
don't
the
know if
question?
it's,
Go ahead.
yeah, the question, I was going to say, I don't know if it's, um, that, I don't know if it's that broken down as much as, I don't know, I guess I think of the experiences that you see in church, in deliverance services that happen often. People do come to, they're able to come to church, but when the word is, the, the opportunity is actually there for deliverance, to see someone have the demon that they're, or the spirit that they're possessed by, decides to rear its head. You know, they let them sit through the whole service, but when the actual, you know, and they're blocking a lot of it, but when the actual Holy Spirit is moving in this person, or attempting to, then we see them start to react. So, I mean, I guess from that angle, that's possible. I think it's something we witness, well, we used to witness frequently. So,
Okay.
I mean, the
Or it
devil went to
said,
go
and then
talk to God about Job. So we know that he can come into the presence. He just isn't willing to accept it. He acknowledges who he is. He
Okay.
just isn't willing to be obedient.
That's that's a good thought as well, because I can see that the person is there, and then when the pressure comes on, the other side pops out. Okay. Somebody else was saying something else.
I
I
was
heard.
just saying, I was repeating, if there be any sick among you, let them go to the elders of the church. And he was going to Jesus to seek help from being healed of the demonic spirits that was in him.
Okay, that's down the line what we're kind of talking about. So that him going to Jesus was already expressed like that, and then yeah, wanting to be healed. But then my question was about the conflict. It seemed like there's two persons in him, and that you have the going to Jesus, and then the what have I to do with you person, or I'm actually looking at the Greek translation. Ego means self. Yeah, that's one of the main words to saying self in Greek. Ego. We get that word ego or ego from that, or id, and ego id as the self, basically self soul, and then kai, soy, si, right, sir? Yeah, si. So me self, even and or among or with you. What me self with among or you, and then the rest of it is Jesus, son, who can what David. I'm sure that's what I can't see at this minute, but just it's interesting that there's two different aspects that seem to get demonstrated. So I thought that's something to catch. There's two things going on. Moving on. That's all right. We go on unless someone has something else they want to say. Um, and then he goes on to say, Son of the Most High. So not I said David actually. I'm sorry. Son of the Most High, and I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. All right. I adjure thee, all right, by Theos. I want you to swear, or I charge you in the name of the Lord. This is what he's saying. I charge you in the name of the Lord. I under oath that you don't harm me, don't that torment me not. That's what he said. How about that for more confusion?
So this evil spirit sees Jesus afar off and he come and worship him. And then he's asking him not to harm the body of Legion because he's there, to me, causing all kind of issues with him. So I was thinking that this spirit is like, okay, I know who you are. I'm coming, because the devil's worship
hear
is
you.
there. I know the devils are at the church or whatever they are present as well. So my thinking is that this demon already know who Jesus is, and he's asking Jesus and not to harm him.
You're so far away.
I think they're asking Jesus not to harm him, this
We hear
demon, and I guess he's just looking to me. I think the demon's just looking out for himself. He doesn't want Jesus to, harm or hurt him. He wants to stay where he is
Mhm.
and abide in that body. Although he's harming that physical body, that body of legion, but he's still saying, "Okay, well, I acknowledge you. I know who you are. I'm coming to worship. Give my worship to you. But at the same time, I'm still going to ask of you to not harm me, this spirit that's living inside of Legion." I don't know how if that makes sense to any of you all. What do you all think of that thought that I'm having? Those two verses.
That's why I said I thought he was running to worship him to keep him from bothering him. Like,
Mhm.
okay, let me hurry up and worship him, and now when
Right.
he asks me
Yeah.
why you here and get in my business, I'm trying to keep doing what I'm doing.
You called it, Maddie. It's exactly what I'm thinking.
So
Yep.
that's why I thought at first he ran to worship and say, like, come on now, I want you to really know what I'm doing, and don't be wiping me out.
Yeah,
So-
right, exactly. That's how I'm thinking too.
I mean, that's an interesting thought on both sides. I mean, it's kind of funny to me, but it's an interesting thought. That someone in that mode with that dichotomy is present. Now, don't get me wrong. We know that we always have some dichotomy in our lives because, to will is present, like Apostle Paul says, right? So that I find that an interesting discussion to definitely consider. Let's move. Let's move though. All right. So it's good stuff. I like it. I love. There's a lot there. Whoever's doing the lesson tomorrow, I don't know. But anyway, it's a lot there.
Just
Don't
to
get.
say, Pastor,
Uh-huh.
just to say, it's like he's like, I'll put it like this: the devil like is tormenting me, Lord, and Jesus, I don't need you to torment me in anymore. God, will you just stop this right now?
Well, okay, that's another thought too. Uh, all right. Well, I like I said, there's a lot here. I think what we can validly say is there's clearly a dichotomy in the man, and we can say that because it's the man's own nature and soul, and also the evil spirits that are present, their effect is being realized as well. And he says he has a lot. He says he has legion in him. The definitions that I pulled from legion, unlike some of the just common phrasing I hear, is basically 6,000 front soldiers, 6,000 at the Roman Empire time period, which this is in, 6,000 front or attack or assault soldiers and 6,000 support soldiers. So that's 12,000. And that would be the way they would bring the structure. The 6,000 would be the first group that go forward, and the others would be there as reserve and support and security. So that's what he's talking about, 12,000 demons, in other words. All right. So all kinds of spirits, and that's another conversation to have. But all right. So he asked him, what is thy name? He said his name, got that all clear. Now, where'd you stop at? Let me make sure I go where you stopped.
I stopped at 9. I mean, yeah, 9.
Okay. Now, let me get you all back up the line. So up to 9. All right, go ahead then. Let's go ahead.
And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there nigh into the mountains a great herd of swine feeding, and all the devils besought him, saying, send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus came them leave, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. There were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea, or they drowned.
Yes, I'm sorry, I got a little call there real quick, and I just wanted to move it. I don't want to let it go, but yes. So you see that we clearly hear the demonstration that the demons are speaking. So if anybody's saying it's not the demon speaking, it's him speaking, the demons are the ones speaking. Now there was the mountain aspect of it, and they did not want to have to be kicked out or sent to another area or region, I guess is the fair term. They asked not to be kicked out of the country. So the word country is Korah, which Korah is we would spell it Chora, Korah, like that. It's
K-O-R-A?
Chora. Is that what you said?
Oh, no, I said K-O-R.
No, not K. They're they're
Okay.
they're using in the Greek the Z, the letter that looks like an X. All right. So that is the term that. Hold on, I'm just looking at something real fast. Anyway, Cora, land, the territory. No, they don't want to get kicked out of the land. Fair enough, I guess, to say it like that. All right. And that might be like Kai. It might be like key. Yeah. All right. They want to do that, and Jesus forthwith gave them leave to get out of the man. That would be right. All right. Telling them to leave, and they went, and the spirits went out, and they entered into swine, and that was the pig thing. And then they go down, they run down, and they drown themselves in the sea. Okay, when you stop there, what verse? I'm sorry, that phone call threw me a little bit.
13.
Okay, and also because the lesson doesn't cover 14, but okay, they drowned in the city. They drowned. I'm sorry, they drowned in the sea, and then the people in the city heard about it, in the country, I should say, and they wanted to see what happened. All these swine, all these pigs that they were planning on eating are dead. They drowned themselves. Okay, then you jump to what, verse 18?
It goes to 18, yeah.
Yeah, go
But I
ahead
was
to
gonna
18.
ask,
Oh,
since
go
it
ahead.
was
Sorry.
2,000 swine, were there 2,000 legions?
No, we know what the Legion is. He was Legion. That
You
number
said
was
many. Legion means many, so was it 2,000 to affect 2,000 swine? Why wasn't it one swine or 10 or 100? Why all 2,000 ran into the
well,
war?
Legion was 12,000. Remember, we
Oh,
just we
12,000.
just went
Oh,
through
okay.
that. That was 6,000 front and 6,000 support troops. So
Okay.
Legion is 12,000. So how many
So,
go into each pig? I don't know. Is that what you mean?
okay. All right, all right. Yeah. Okay, 18.
Doesn't support that anyway.
And when he was coming to the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. Howbeit, Jesus suffered him not, but said unto him, Go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel.
Right. So what Jesus tells him is, no, don't come with me. Hang out here and let the evangelistic aspect of what has been done uh, be realized by you staying here and being a testimony to what has happened versus you taking off, which would be easy to do, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to stay here and be a testimony. Sometimes that's a good example of where the Lord says, I'd rather you be a good testimony than you to just hang out, or hang with the cool kids, as it were, to move on and say, I want to be with where the next part of the ministry is going. And God said, no, I don't want you to be there. I want you to be a model right here with these folks right here. And I'm calling you for that. So sometimes that's what God has us do. Well, we want to just roll um, with the wave, and he says, no, no, I want you to stand fast, and I want you to share what God has done, and others are going to come to you because of that, because they're going to have you there. When somebody's talking about a testimony of this guy he used to have all these evil spirits in him, and we knew he was crazy, and he lived in the tombs, and people say, oh, that's not true, that's just an old fable. And when the guy walks up, says, it's not a fable, I'm the guy. So that direct testimony, being present in the land, is quite effective as a witnessing tool. Let's make up one other note about this. When Jesus, after this is done, the people in the city don't like Jesus, and they want Jesus to leave. All right. If you look at them, they are upset in look around verse 14, 15. They begin to say verse 15, they come to Jesus to see him that was possessed of the devil and had the legion sitting and clothed. I'm not sure if they mention the fact that he didn't wear clothes here. In one of the other gospels, they do mention that, and Luke, I think it is, mentioned that he doesn't have clothes on. And in his right mind, clothed and in his right mind. Remember, we talked about this a few times about that song, I was clothed. People say, I was closed, closed, closed in my right mind. That is incorrect. I was clothed and in my right mind. That's where that song lyrics come from. And what's the name of that song? The Lord is blessing me. That's that song. He woke me up this morning, and I was what? Clothed and in my right mind. They just skip and say in my right mind. But
didn't let me sleep too late.
Exactly.
But over on time.
There you go. Exactly. But unfortunately, over the years, people picking it up from other groups singing, picked it up and thought it was closed. S-E-D, closed, C-L-O-S-E-D, closed. But it's actually the word clothed. It comes from this particular text, meaning I was not out of my mind and full of evil spirits, but rather I was healed, saved, sanctified at this point, and sound. That's what it is pointing to. I'm sound and normal. My mind is normal. What is that? God's not giving us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. That gives you support for the same idea. Okay, clothed and in my and in his right mind, and they were afraid, and they had. I'm sorry, and they that saw it told him how it befell to him that he that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. So somebody explained everything that happened, and they began to beg slash pray slash ask Jesus to depart and leave their area. All right, the coast, leave their coast. All right, and then verse 18 is where we pick up. So they didn't want to deal with in this particular lesson what the people thought about Jesus, but I think it's quite illustrative for you to realize the people were not happy or glad to see Jesus or what Jesus had done, but rather they would rather have Jesus leave their area rather than to be glad that the power of deliverance and healing was in their area. And that reminds you of certain types of communities and cities like as Sodom and Gomorrah, which is easy, or something like that, Pompeii, where you can see cities and nations or peoples that even though they had a chance potentially to know the truth, they didn't want the truth. They rejected the truth. And let's look at the coast, if you would, just for a moment. I'm gonna stop this share and show you another share. So you can see Gadara and the Decapolis. Can you guys see the map okay?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is the Decapolis area. You can see up here where Sea of Galilee is. This is also where Galilee is. Caesarea Philippi, part of the country was named after Caesar. All right, that's telling you that the Romans were basically at this point clearly in charge, but much of the stuff is named with Greek names. Okay, all right, so you can see that Decapolis. Deca means 10 in the what do you call it? Metric system, Deca. So 10. And here are the 10 cities that are the Decapolis. Here you go. 1, Kanata, Hippus, Dion, Bafana, Gadara, Pella, Gesara, Philadelphia, Scythopolis. That count 10? 1, 2, 3,
That's
4,
9.
5, 6, 7, 8,
What about
9.
Damascus?
Yeah, I can't see Damascus, and that's probably what it is. That is the last one. I know it is, but I just can't see. Hold on, let me move it up. There it is, Damascus up top. There you go. I just couldn't see it because the bar is blocking it. So Damascus is number 10. All right. So these are all cities of the Decapolis. It was kind of a mix and a mingle. You see, Syria was involved because you got Damascus right there. We know that Paul was on the Damascus road. So we know this is the area that they were up in. So Jesus had left Judah or Judea down here lower. Where I hope you can see my cursor moving around, where Judea is. And obviously that is also where you would find Jerusalem in Judea. They don't have it mentioned on this particular map because it's a map of the Decapolis, Decapolis, if you want. Deca city, the 10 city. All right. And well, I just wanted you all to see where they were. And they wanted him to leave their area, Gadara. We can see Gadara right here. And that's where he was, where this event happened. He had gotten off the ship somewhere along this river, obviously, a little bit south of the Sea of Galilee, probably, or it might have been that Galilee, I'm not sure. But in this area is where he was, and that's where he left. Notice to the left, so the northwest, I guess you say northwest, where is Nazareth. And then Capernaum is further north, right? So you get an idea when you see these cities and you hear the conversation. This Philadelphia here is not the Philadelphia where the church is up in Asia Minor, which is further up north, okay? But this is letting you know Philia meaning brotherly, brother-like, brother, Phila, and then Philia meaning what? I'm sorry, love. And Delphia meaning brother.
Their brotherly love.
So love brother is really what it is. So kind of reverse that in your thought. But anyway, in that you can see these cities are named here, but just note this Philadelphia is not the Church of Philadelphia, that's not the Philadelphia, which is in the Asia Minor churches, which is further north. Alrighty. So let's go back to our screen. And last thing we'll close this out with is back to our share, switch our share back. And there we go. So we have I didn't make any notes on the side, but I think what we can see is that Jesus comes to this place because again he has an evangelistic mandate, and he has a purpose to reach out and bring the knowledge of the Messiah and salvation to another part of Israel, northern part, like Samaria and the other lessons, and to allow them to come to know that the Savior has come and that salvation is available. And he leaves somebody behind. In the case of Samaria, he leaves a woman to go around and tell everybody, come see a man. In the case of Gadara, he leaves the actual person he delivered from the 12,000 or the legion of demons to do the evangelistic work, which then tells us something we ought to look for as a typology, is that people whom the Lord delivers, those of us whom the Lord has delivered, ought to become his witnesses. There it is. Those who have been blessed by God, have seen the power of God moving them, ought to, in their as a result, praise God, I guess is the word, become clearly the witnesses of kingdom, because they are their own testimonies for others to hear. Any other questions about it or thoughts on this? Jesus overpowers the legion. I would say the legion because it's a thing in my mind. However, he calls himself by what that thing is, those 12,000 troops. But you know, that's just an I thought thing, a semantic issue. But you all have questions or thoughts? Any other thoughts on this?
Well, my thought about it is that Jesus had evicted those spirits out of him,
Mm-hmm.
and even though the swines went and jumped in the water, but you think about those other spirits, even though they said they were killed. But my thought of it is they jumped in the water, but who's not to say they went into the fishes or the whales? And you know, he needs a soul to be in order to operate.
Well, and the point of that is that demons are spirits, so they don't drown. So, where they went next is more of a little bit of a question, but we do have in the book of Luke, chapter 11, a little bit of a modeling where you might say they might have had some kind of demise to what they were able to be and do. There's a suggestion there. Where are we at? 11 and verse 24. Luke 11:24 gives an idea that could have been something that was destructive to them. Verse 24 says, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, this is when they telling Jesus, saying Jesus had cast out demons by the power of the Beelzebub, basically, the demon or the leader of the demons, as it were, somewhat. All right. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest. All right. So let's just stop there because we're really not about what happens to the man. What we see here is the demons don't want to be in wet places. Or at least that's the suggestion. They walk around in dry places. Why dry places? I'm not aware of that. I would just say that. I don't know why dry places would be preferred, but I can clearly see that over in the book of Luke. You all see where I'm talking about.
Dry places, dry bones, dry feelings.
Well, dry suggests death if that's what you're trying to go for. But and he wasn't the demons. He wasn't the tombs. So I mean, there is some thought or precedent to the idea that it's a place of death. I don't know. They want to be dry. That's what we can see that they don't choose to be in wet places. I think it's a fair thing to say they're not trying to be where it's wet. Do y'all think that's fair? Based on what you just saw. I mean, I'm not trying to create it. I'm just
Well, Jesus did say he was the living water. That's why they don't get wet.
I don't know. I don't know. It could be. I don't know, but that something to do with the water and water. Life does come from water. Everything rises out of the idea of water. So the word that I'm actually doing a little research as you all we're talking about. So it's anidros. So it's ani or an with a y, anudos or anidros. I'm sorry, dross. A-N-Y or A-N-U-D-R-O-S. Ani, like any, like you spell the word like any, and then D-R-O-S, anidros, and it means waterless. And watch the rest of this definition. Watch this hit you. I know dry places is not in this lesson, so I'm not going to just throw it in here. But waterless without life-giving rain, clouds, dried up water springs, arid wastelands. That's what they have for dry places. Okay, so without life-giving rain, clouds, also without life-giving, I think, well, rain, clouds, what do they give you? Water. So without life-giving water, effectively, is what they're talking about. It certainly be the opposite of Zao and Zoe. Okay. Well, anyway, something to think about. You can go and you can study some more. You might find somebody real or paper or papers on the internet about it. This is in this day and age because of the internet. You can run into a lot of papers online that people have published, whatever their work is, their thesis or their dissertations or whatever. Some they publish that they put them online, and you might have somebody who's done a lot of research on it, and they may throw some other concepts and thoughts into your study to consider. You don't have to accept what they say. You consider it and see if it lines up with text and scripture to the point where you think is valid. So anyway, that's good. That's basically our lessons. If there anything else, Marnice, that you want us to cover, or anything, any the person who has tomorrow's lesson have questions about that you want to clear up, anything?
Not that I have right now, not that I can think of.
Okay. All righty. Well, then if that's no other questions, then let's just close this session. First of all, I'm gonna switch top to share. And then where we at here? Stop the share and stop the recording.